I have been learning a language for over 2 years now, and over the years I've learned a couple of things that have allowed me to continue practicing my language without experiencing any drop in motivation. And by the end of this video, you will know these things too. In this video, I will explain what I was able to do to accomplish this, and how you can implement these tricks into your daily life and experience real results today. The first and by far the most important thing that you need to do to maintain motivation to study a language is to love the language that you're studying. If you take away anything from this video, I want this to be it. And if you do not enjoy the content that you're engaging in, it'll feel like a chore. And to exemplify this point, I want you to imagine a house. Absolutely spotless. Everybody loves a clean house. But if you ask anybody on the street if they want to master the craft of cleaning a house, most people would say no. They would not go out of their way to practice cleaning, even though they would enjoy the results of this action. And this same concept can be applied to learning a language. If you want to learn a language, that's great. A lot of people do. When it comes to language learning, you're going to want to keep things as easy as possible for yourself so that you actually go out of your way and engage with the language. The easier it is for you to practice your language, the more fun it is, the easier it will be to keep you engaged and continue being surrounded by your language. Now, how can you go about learning to love your language? It's not like you can just choose what you like and don't like. It just is what it is. And yes, this is true, but you can also use this fact to create a workaround for yourself to make it easier. So instead of choosing a language and trying to force yourself to like it, it may be a better approach to choose a language that you like the most, even if it isn't the most practical. For example, I'm learning Portuguese, and I can already hear you saying, I just studied this language in school, and I just put in so much work, 4, 5, 6 years into this language. I don't want to give it up now. And I hear you, and I actually have some advice to help you out with that too. It can be really difficult to get yourself to like a language again, especially after receiving formal education in it. It kind of seems like formal education has this way of diminishing the love you have for things that you once cherished. But that's besides the point. There are 2 very easy things that you can do to get yourself to like a language that you already chose. The first is listening to music. Music just has a special effect on people in a very unique way. I don't know how to describe it. I think it's just kind of part of human nature, but you know what I mean. Like once that certain song comes on and you just can't help but jive to it, you know? It just seems right. It seems like everything's okay. And you can leverage this and use it to enjoy the language that you're studying. The second is getting invested in a good TV show or movie. Doing so can catalyze your interest for learning a new language, especially when you grow fond of the film or you just hear something that just sounds right. Like it just sounds very cool. And if you have the luxury of choosing your language, then you've made things a billion times easier for yourself. It helps to know your interests before you choose to learn a language. So if you like the Cyrillic alphabet, maybe learn Russian or Ukrainian or Polish. If you like how Latin languages sound, you can learn Portuguese, French, Spanish, Italian. If you love calligraphy, Farsi, Arabic, they all could be like right up your alley because those languages are written beautifully. And if you're Latina, you can learn Portuguese or Spanish to connect with your roots. Speaking of this brings me to another great way to maintain motivation while learning a language, and that is to remember the why. If you keep the reason as to why you want to learn your particular language while you study, it is a lot harder to lose motivation. This reminds me of people who do things for their kids. They go to college for their kids. They work long hours for their kids. They want to give the kids the things that they never had. They do it for a broader purpose for their kids, and you can do the same with a language. They always have the reason as to why they're doing what they're doing in their mind so that they can continuously work on the things they need to work on. School is hard, working long hours is hard, but with their reason for their kids, it's not so bad. Learning a language, it's hard. It's time consuming. It can be so frustrating, but if you remember why you are learning the language that you're learning, you won't lose motivation. The third thing you can do to maintain motivation for learning a language is to keep a time frame. I recently heard that long distance relationships are easier if you have an end point or a time when you're finally able to end the distance between you guys. And I think that's true. And the same concept can be applied to learning a language. Say I have never learned a language before and I want to learn Mandarin Chinese. I would set my time frame way further than I would for something like German, because Mandarin Chinese is so much more distant of a language to English than German is to English. German and English are very close, so I would expect myself to take less time than I would for Mandarin Chinese. And when I do this, I won't get as demotivated as easily because I know that it may take a little longer to learn a language depending on how distant it is from English. My situation aligns perfectly with this point, although not in the way that I previously mentioned. I'm learning Portuguese and I want to go to Brazil. I started learning Portuguese 2 years ago, and when I started learning Portuguese, I told myself that I would go to Brazil once I graduate. So I have 3 years to learn as much Portuguese as I can before I go to Brazil, since I said this in sophomore year. I'm 2 years in, and I'm pretty intermediate at the language, which is great. But knowing this, I can decide how much more effort I want to put into learning the language for the next year. Can I survive in Brazil? Absolutely. Will it be hard? Absolutely. And this is just one of the endless situations that a time frame will help you maintain motivation for learning a language. The final way to prevent yourself from getting demotivated while learning a language is to track your progress. This is especially important at the start or when you practice a lot. When you study a language, you kind of forget how far along you are in learning a language until you reflect back on it. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's like any other skill. You know, you just kind of forget how good you are until you look back and realize how much worse you were back then. I think this is especially true for like any competitive games or anything speed related, which is kind of weird because learning a language is neither of those things. But anyways, you can look back at how much worse you were in the past. It doesn't have to be a super short time. In fact, it's better if it's a longer time. Like if I look back on how my Portuguese was 6 months ago, I can say that I've improved drastically. And I can use this as motivation to continue studying a language. In another year, I could be as far along from this point as I was from this point to that, if that makes sense. Essentially, you can use it to make sure that you're not studying for nothing and that you're actually reaping the rewards that you are working hard for. And to end, I want to talk about some strategies that you can use to bypass low motivation in the moment. The first is the 5-minute rule. If you don't feel like doing something, get out your phone, put it on stopwatch mode, and hit start, and try to do the thing for 5 minutes. If the stopwatch reaches 5, then you can stop. Like obviously, if you put in 5 minutes of work and you just can't do it, you can't do it, and that's fine. But most of the time, you will end up working for much longer than just 5 minutes. And at the 5-minute mark, you may even notice it and just decide to keep on going since you've already started. Starting is the hardest part, and with this rule, or with this trick, you're able to bypass that kind of startup energy. I forgot what it's called. Reaction energy, energy reaction, startup energy, initial energy. What's it called? Base energy, base, what, do I need to look it up? Activation energy. You bypass the activation energy required to get started on the task, and from then on it becomes much easier. You may find yourself working for 15, 30, 45 minutes, even an hour or two. I know I have sometimes. It's kind of surprising how well it works, so I highly recommend it if you're able to do it. But if that doesn't work, I recommend trying to do something productive before you start learning a language. So for me, if the 5-minute rule doesn't work, I start to clean my room or tidy it up. I don't clean it, I just tidy it up, and it makes me feel like I'm being productive. It kind of gets me in the zone like, yeah, it's time to get stuff done now. And then I sit on my desk, get to work, and hopefully that momentum can carry me from tidying up my room to learning a language. And that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually had a lot of fun filming this. I didn't want to do it at first, so I cleaned my room, showered, and got to work. Just like the low motivation tip I just gave you. It works, people. Trust me. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day. Check out some of my other videos. I'm going to set up a whole series on how to learn a language and the different aspects that I can teach you since I've been learning for 2 years. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Ciao.